The year 1962 saw the Cuban Missile Crisis bring us to the brink of nuclear war, but it also delivered some of the most influential music ever recorded. Today, we're diving into 5 tracks that changed everything. Let's explore these musical gems together. The Drifters, who performed Up on the Roof, was formed in 1953 through a rather ruthless business decision. When original members demanded better pay, their manager, George Treadwell, simply fired them all and hired a completely different group, the Five Crowns, to perform under the Drifters name. This controversial move meant the group you heard on Up on the Roof wasn't the original Drifters at all. The music industry's cutthroat nature was alive and well in the early 60s.
Taken from the Drifters album, Love Games.
With performers often treated as disposable, while labels retained all the power and most of the money. The Drifters' revolving door of talent eventually included over 60 different singers, creating ongoing legal battles over who had the right to use the name. After 1958, the New Drifters featured lead singer Ben E. King briefly before he left for a solo career. Then Johnny Moore took the helm for Up on the Roof. The song itself, written by the legendary team of Goffin and King, that's Carole King, who would later become a superstar songwriter-performer herself, peaked at number 4 on the charts. The Drifters' name continues to be contested today, with multiple groups touring under variations of the title, creating confusion for fans who never know if they're seeing legitimate former members or just opportunistic imitators. Interestingly, Up on the Roof found its greatest commercial success when it wasn't by the Drifters at all. James Taylor's 1979 cover reached higher chart positions in several countries than the original ever did. The song's escapist theme of finding peace above the chaotic streets resonated with urban listeners who understood the value of finding quiet spaces in overcrowded cities, a sentiment that was revolutionary for addressing mental well-being in an era when such discussions were largely taboo. The Isley Brothers didn't just record Twist and Shout, they transformed it from a forgettable tune into a rock and roll explosion.
Every time I think about you, you've been so good to me,
Founded in Cincinnati in 1954 by brothers O'Kelly, Rudolph, and Ronald Isley, the group struggled for years before finding success. Their version of Twist and Shout came after the song had already been recorded by the Top Notes, but the Isleys' rendition, produced by a young Phil Spector, is what made history. What many people don't know is that the raw, throat-shredding vocal performance came partly from Ronald Isley's actual pain. He was suffering from a serious throat condition during the recording, but pushed through it anyways, creating that distinctive raspy intensity that defined the track. Though the Beatles cover would later overshadow their version in popular memory, the Isley Brothers have preserved far longer than most acts from that era. They've reinvented themselves repeatedly over 7 decades, incorporating younger brothers Ernie and Marvin in the 1970s to create funk classics like That Lady and Fight the Power. Their most recent album came out in 2017, and despite O'Kelly's death in 1986 and Rudolph's passing in 2004, Ronald Isley continues performing at 83 years old. The group has influenced countless artists across multiple genres, from rock to R&B to hip-hop, with their catalog sampled extensively by rap producers. The Isley Brothers hold the record for the longest charting group in Billboard history, with chart placements spanning 6 different decades of the 1950s through the 2000s. Their music has appeared in over 400 films and television shows, often during pivotal scenes such as their 1962 hit Twist and Shout and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Even more remarkable, the group achieved hit records during the eras of doo-wop, Motown, psychedelic rock, disco, Quiet Storm R&B, and modern hip-hop, a versatility no other American band can claim. If you've enjoyed learning about these musical pioneers, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button and make sure you've subscribed to catch all our music history deep dives. What memories do these songs bring back for you? Share your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear about the first time you heard these classics or where you were when they topped the charts. Your experiences are part of music history too. Hey friends, if these songs are taking you back to the good old days, I want to hear all about it. Drop those memories in the comments below. Your stories are the real history of rock and roll. And if you're enjoying this musical journey through 1962, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. The Contours performed Do You Love Me? And might have been forgotten entirely if not for a stroke of luck and the temper of Berry Gordy. Formed in Detroit in 1959, the group was barely hanging on at Motown Records after a string of failures. The story goes that Gordy had originally written Do You Love Me for the Temptations, but when they weren't available for recording, he stormed into the Contours' rehearsal room and offered them a chance: record this song successfully or be dropped from the label. This desperation created one of the most energetic performances in rock history. Many industry insiders consider the Contours too rough and unpolished compared to Motown's more sophisticated acts. But that raw energy is precisely what made the record connect with teenagers looking for authentic emotion rather than polished perfection. After Do You Love Me reached number 3 on the Billboard charts, the Contours struggled to maintain momentum. They never achieved another top 10 hit, despite releasing several follow-up singles. Original members began leaving by the mid-1960s, and the group was largely overshadowed by Motown's more promoted acts like the Temptations and Four Tops. Unlike those groups, the Contours weren't selected for prestigious European tours or television appearances, creating resentment among band members who felt Gordy had abandoned them after their brief success. However, the song found surprising new life when featured prominently in the 1987 film Dirty Dancing, returning to the Billboard Hot 100 25 years after its original release, and introducing the Contours to a new generation. Lead singer Billy Gordon's powerful vocals on Do You Love Me came with a surprising price. He often sang with such intensity that he would regularly pass out during live performances of the song. The group's choreography was so athletic that Motown had to hire a special trainer to condition the members for their exhausting performances. Years later, Billy Gordon admitted in a rare interview that he resented the song's success because it pigeonholed the group into one style, preventing them from showcasing their versatility with ballads and more sophisticated material that might have prolonged their career. The Surfaris formed in 1962 in the San Gabriel Valley of California and created Wipeout almost by accident. The band needed a B-side for their planned single Surfer Joe and reportedly wrote and recorded Wipeout in just 15 minutes as an afterthought. The iconic drum solo was performed by then 17-year-old Ron Wilson on a $60 drum kit, while the maniacal laugh at the beginning came from their manager's broken rib. Band member Bob Berryhill's father, Dale, fractured his rib just before recording and was in pain during the Wipeout pronunciation, creating the distinctive cackle. Most music critics at the time dismissed surf rock as a passing teenage fad with no musical merit, yet the genre's instrumental innovation would later influence everything from punk to progressive rock. The success of Wipeout propelled the teenage band briefly into the spotlight, but internal conflicts and management disputes quickly derailed their momentum. The original members, Bob Berryhill, Pat Connolly, Jim Fuller, and Ron Wilson, went their separate ways by the mid-1960s, though various configurations continued touring. Today, only Bob Berryhill performs with his family members under the Surfaris name, while several competing versions of the band existed until recently. The British invasion effectively ended mainstream surf rock by 1964, forcing many musicians from the genre to either evolve or abandon their careers. Though Wipeout would return to the charts in both 1966 and 1970, the Surfaris never recaptured their brief moment at the center of American youth culture. Wipeout might have never become a hit without a clerical error. When radio stations received the single, many DJs preferred the energy of the B-side Wipeout over the A-side Surfer Joe. As stations began flipping the record, Billboard magazine accidentally listed Wipeout as the A-side of their charts. This mistake essentially forced the record label to promote Wipeout instead, changing music history. Additionally, the song's use of the term wipeout helped to popularize the surfing slang term for a bad fall among non-surfers, demonstrating how music can spread specialized vocabulary into mainstream usage. The Tornadoes, formed in London in 1960, were assembled specifically as a backing band for producer Joe Meek's studio sessions before recording their own material. Telstar, named after the first communication satellite, showcased Meek's revolutionary production techniques at his independent studio above a leather shop on Holloway Road. Unlike most producers of the era, Meek created dense layers of sound using compression and homemade electronic effects built from modified household appliances. His unorthodox methods included recording in bathrooms for natural reverb and using the stairwell as an echo chamber. While celebrated today as a pioneer, many traditional musicians and engineers at the time considered Meek dangerously unstable and his techniques unprofessional, creating a significant divide in the British music industry about the future of recorded sound. Though Telstar reached #1 in both the UK and US, the first British instrumental to top American charts, the Tornadoes' success was short-lived. Legal troubles plagued the song when French composer Jean Ledru claimed it plagiarized his work for the film Austerlitz. The lawsuit prevented Meek from receiving royalties during his lifetime, contributing to his financial problems and deteriorating mental health. By 1965, all original Tornadoes members had departed, replaced by session musicians for diminishing returns. Joe Meek's troubled life ended tragically in 1967 when, during a police investigation at his studio, he killed his landlady with a shotgun before taking his own life. The remaining group members disbanded shortly after, leaving Telstar as their primary legacy. The groundbreaking electronic sounds Meek pioneered would later be recognized as precursors to synthesizer music and modern electronic production. Telstar included sounds never before heard in popular music, created by Meek's handmade clavioline, with additional modifications to produce futuristic tones. The record's success prompted a congratulatory telegram from the actual Telstar satellite's designers at Bell Labs, who were amazed that their scientific achievement had inspired a pop hit. Perhaps most surprisingly, Telstar was recorded in a tiny bedroom studio with such poor soundproofing that recordings often had to stop when buses passed by outside. In 2016, remaining master tapes from Meek's studio were discovered in a garden shed where they'd been stored for over 40 years, revealing unreleased material that music archaeologists are still processing today. That wraps up our journey through these 5 remarkable songs from 1962. From surf rock to soul, these recordings captured the spirit of an America on the cusp of massive social change. If you enjoyed this musical time machine, please subscribe to our channel and share your own memories in the comments below. Until next time, keep those classic tunes playing.